Chapter 601, The Mirror World. The jeep headed northward with only Lu Shu and Chen Zuan on board, because the rest had entered the remains the next day of Lu Shu's return. The wheels of the jeep sent waves of sand flying in the air. On either side of the car, the wind-eroded landscape was strangely peculiar. No wonder the place was described as unusual, as the landforms itself reminded the visitors of the mythical inferno. "Brother Shu, what do you expect of the remains this time?" Chen Zuan asked curiously. "There could be thunderbolts that strike people," Lu Shu replied from the rear seat, with his eyes closed. "Don't bear grudges. I simply said the wrong things. By the way, do you think they are close to the relic? It's been 9 days since the first group went into the remains." "There could be thunderbolts that strike people," said Lu Shu calmly. From Chen Zuan's distress, plus 999. Sometimes Lu Shu felt that there was more freedom overseas. No matter how comfortable he felt verbally attacking Chen Zuan, it was this little fatty who carried him out of the hole back then. Hence, he should not be too mean to him either. However, if it was not Chen Zuan, but someone from the Phoenix Society or the Department of Faith Theory, a real fight might have already started. Take that military doctor for example. How could Lu Shu fight someone who attended to the injured at the campsite? Therefore, even his earning of distress points was easier abroad. Unlike other people, Lu Shu's pissing off others was out of his own needs. At this moment, there was still another half to go before the complete ignition of the 7th star in his 3rd layer of the celestial map. Distress points were absolutely necessary for his training progress. Some people might wonder why Lu Shu seemed to have no need to practice, while in fact he trained mostly at night and his ridicule was a form of practice as well. Just like the others, he was eager to truly ascend to Class B as well. But now, it was already so difficult to climb to the 3rd layer. If everybody on Earth could contribute 1 distress point, and there were 7 billion of them, he could ascend to. Lu Shu started the mental calculation. Going overseas might be an excellent choice. For instance, he could have gained loads of resources from the South American ruins not long ago, even its relic. Lu Shu decided to create a good plan for his future cultivation journey after the Lopner adventure. The vehicle suddenly came to a stop. The driver eyed the thick fog in front and turned to speak to Chen Zuan and Lu Shu. "Gentlemen, you'll have to cover the remaining distance on foot." Lu Shu opened the door and gazed at the remains. "Let's go." He was worried about Lu Xiaoyu. In the recent days, there were no changes on the page of distress points gained by Lu Xiaoyu. He wondered what was going on. Chen Zuan followed closely behind. "Brother Shu, please help me when we go inside. Our positions inside are randomly arranged, so I can't help you even if I want. But rest assured, I will protect you when we meet." After Lu Shu finished speaking, he walked into the remains resolutely. In the next instant, Lu Shu realized he was surrounded by a vast, endless world. He found it hard to stand still, not because the ground was shaky, but it was too slippery. To his astonishment, the world that appeared in front of him was floored by a flat, smooth mirror, reflecting his own image. The sky was blue, just like the outside world. In the distance, the border between the horizon and the sky was relaxing and uplifting. This world was so odd. The previous remains had at least ground consisted of soils or stones, a familiar geographical configuration as the human world. But it was totally different here. Lu Shu tried hard to maintain his balance so as not to slip. At this moment, he felt a wave behind him. Then, Chen Zuan emerged out of the air. Lu Shu was dumbfounded. The chances of them being transported to the same place was expected to be extremely low, but here they were. Upon the sight of Lu Shu, Chen Zuan laughed out loud in pleasant surprise. Immediately he slipped on the floor and stopped only 5 meters away from Lu Shu. "What is this, Brother Shu?" Chen Zuan wanted to support his body with his arms, but his hands slipped on the floor again and he fell on his face. Lu Shu studied the surroundings. Did the previous batches encounter the same situation as well? Tough game, man. Brother Shu, lend me your hand, please. I can't stand up. Chen Zuan called for help. Lu Shu was amused by Chen Zuan slipping on the floor with different gestures. Look, I'm standing here quite still. From Chen Zuan's distress, plus 666. Frustrated, Chen Zuan pleaded, I know. Then help me. Lu Shu grinned. I think there's something wrong with your cerebellum. It can't keep your balance. As he spoke, he walked towards Chen Zuan. But Lu Shu slipped too when he just came close to Chen Zuan, giving the latter a hard kick. Chen Zuan was dumbstruck. From Chen Zuan's distress, plus 999. As a result, Chen Zuan slipped a few tens of meters on the frictionless surface. Brother Shu, Chen Zuan lay on the mirror floor, desperation on his face. You did it intentionally, didn't you? Well, it was an accident. Lu Shu punched the floor, and a piece of mirror cracked open below his fist. When the ground was no longer that slippery, Lu Shu stood up. Chen Zuan's eyes brightened up at the scene. Genius, Brother Shu. No one could have thought of that. Upon the appearance of the man-eating lizards a few days ago, Lu Shu jumped off the vehicle when Chen Zuan and the rest were waiting for it to stop. Now, when other people subconsciously accepted the structure of this new world, Lu Shu knew in his heart that he could change it. Undeniably, instincts were very important. They might even play a crucial role between two rivals of similar abilities. Chen Zuan copied Lu Shu and threw his fist onto the mirror. With a loud bang, the mirror was unharmed, but Chen Zuan's fist almost broke into pieces. Why is it so hard? Chen Zuan shrieked in pain. He then realized that Lu Shu's strength was way above his. Hence, it would still be useless even if he was equipped with the same kind of superpower instincts as Lu Shu. While Lu Shu could break the floor with one punch, Chen Zuan had to try multiple times. From Chen Zuan's distress, plus 666. Lu Shu stood on the shards. He could feel the hardness of the mirror, as every punch of his could only shatter a small piece. He walked towards Chen Zuan, breaking the mirror floor underneath him with every step. I don't have enough energy to break the floor like this wherever we go. Let's think about other alternatives. In fact, Lu Shu was wondering how other Daoyuan class students dealt with the situation, which was difficult even for him. Chapter 602, A Strange World. Lu Shu and Chen Zuan sat on the surface of the mirror and pondered about their strategy. It was not as if this mirror world had no friction at all. If that was the case, Lu Shu would not have been able to stabilize his body once he entered. He had wanted to use his water-type abilities to form a layer of ice that they could slide on. But the problem was that there was only so much water vapor in the air. It would take a long time to form ice that could support them. Chen Zuan thought about it and said, how nice it would be if we had ice skates. We can just skate on the mirror. Ha! Ha! Lu Shu glanced at him. Ice skates also depend on the friction with the ice in order to move. Who told you that ice skates don't need the help of friction? If one wanted to go forwards with ice skates, they had to create a reaction force with the ice using their back leg. But that was not possible on the mirror's surface. But we don't have to worry for now, Chen Zuan said with a laugh. At first, I was afraid that we had come in too late and wouldn't get anything. Now, seeing the situation, the group of Daoyuan class students would probably be thrown into confusion here. Walking is difficult, let alone finding resources. I can even imagine how they will enter this place. They're not much better off than us. Lu Shu nodded. This was the truth. They would face the same circumstances as Lu Shu and Chen Zuan when they entered this place. It was hard to make use of the practitioner's advantage on this mirror surface. But he was not worried that they would not be able to escape. After all, such a strange place would not affect Chen Bailey much. He would eventually find the relic. As Chen Zuan reached his wit's end, Lu Shu suddenly took out two long spears and a mat from thin air. This mat was rather large. This was the waterproof mat that came with the individual outdoor tent set that Lu Shu had bought. Chen Zuan was dumbfounded. "Brother Shu, you actually have invisible storage equipment." Earlier, when Lu Shu had hurled long spears at the man-eating lizards, everyone suspected that Lu Shu had invisible storage equipment, but they could not confirm this suspicion. There were some weapons that could be kept on the body, but a waterproof mat was not a weapon. It was definitely taken out from the invisible storage equipment. Chen Zuan was even more shocked, as he knew that only a few heavenly kings in the country possessed such storage. It was said that even the heavenly network did not have any stock. "Stop your nonsense. Hurry up and come here," Lu Shu said as he carefully climbed onto the waterproof mat and sat down. Chen Zuan understood what Lu Shu wanted to do. Using the spears was definitely much better than a punch to the mirror. Furthermore, the waterproof mat was like a vehicle that could carry them. Lu Shu could use the long spears as oars to propel them forward. Chen Zuan went wild with excitement. He was right to follow Lu Shu into the remains. Chen Zuan climbed onto the mat. "I'm ready. Let's go," Lu Shu said energetically. Lu Shu channeled his celestial powers into the long spears. He used all the strength in his arms to poke two holes in the mirror. He exerted his strength and the waterproof mat slid forwards as fast as an arrow. Chen Zuan, who was sitting behind, felt as if he was sitting at the back of a motorcycle. It was just too fast. Chen Zuan had nothing to grab onto and fell off. From Chen Zuan's distress, plus 666. "Brother Shu," Chen Zuan lay down on the mirror and said sadly. "I will never ridicule you ever again. Please help me." Lu Shu laughed buoyantly and slid over to help him. "Sorry, it was an accident. I won't do it again." Chen Zuan climbed onto the waterproof mat in relief. He hugged Lu Shu tightly from behind. "Let go," Lu Shu's expression darkened. "What if other people saw them? I'm not letting go." Chen Zuan was afraid that Lu Shu would suddenly speed up. He was sharp and would not make the same mistake twice. Lu Shu retrieved a sewing set and a tattered t-shirt from the Seal of Lands. He sewed a handle for Chen Zuan on the waterproof mat. Chen Zuan beamed with joy and let go of Lu Shu. Lu Shu used the two long spears as oars and moved as swift as the wind. The two of them looked at the world around them. The mirror reflected the azure sky. The two of them were tiny compared to the rest of this vast world. They were like a solitary boat on a calm sea. They had rarely experienced such loneliness and vastness in their lives. Chen Zuan suddenly sighed. "Brother Shu, you said that there was nothing here. It doesn't feel like there are training resources here. It's not as simple as you think. All the remains are not so simple." Lu Shu shook his head. "Perhaps we will only know when night falls." Suddenly, they saw a figure far away, silently laying down on the surface. Lu Shu was very certain that the person was still alive. After all, as the person lay down, was chewing on chocolate. The person sensed that someone was approaching. He turned his head and saw Lu Shu and Chen Zuan. When he saw them swiftly moving towards him, he was very surprised. He shouted, "Let me have a ride. I can't move here." Lu Shu controlled the waterproof mat and stopped 5 meters away from the person. The person was Jiang Feng, who had traveled with them earlier. Lu Shu curiously asked, "Why are you here?" "I have been here ever since I arrived," Jiang Feng said with annoyance. "I can't move. I can only lay here and eat." Lu Shu remembered that Jiang Feng had arrived the day before yesterday. He asked, "Are there any changes to the remains at night?" Jiang Feng was dumbfounded. He said, "There is no night here." As expected. Lu Shu furrowed his eyebrows. Earlier, he had felt that the rules in the remains were not as simple as he had expected. The world in the remains was completely different. If it was like Li Xianyi had said, every remains had their own world within them. How could these worlds be the same? But Lu Shu was slightly curious. The remains that he had encountered earlier all had a blood moon. So did those remains all lead to the same place? Lu Shu looked up at the sky. Not only was there no blood moon, there was no sun either. He did not know where the light and the azure sky came from. But the azure was slightly different from that on Earth. There was no sun and no moon. There was no day and night. Jiang Feng recalled how their discussion on how to survive after entering the remains. They even laughed at Lu Shu for not preparing in advance. But after entering the remains, they realized that the remains were completely different from what they had expected. There was no way they could prepare in advance. Could you? Before Jiang Feng could finish his sentence, Lu Shu sped away on his waterproof mat. From Jiang Feng's Distress, plus 666. Chapter 603, Acting Together. They continued moving forward. Lu Shu felt that he had no choice but to leave Jiang Feng. The waterproof mat only had space for 3 people. He wanted to leave a space for Lu Xiaoyu. It would be worse if he made Jiang Feng get down to make space for Lu Xiaoyu. The thousands of students who had come here were here to train. Wasn't there a saying that loneliness clears one's mind? Lu Shu felt that these Daoyuan class students had become warlike after going through the military training. It was good for them to come here and clear their heads. Suddenly, Chen Zuan shouted, "Brother Shu, look." Lu Shu looked in the direction Chen Zuan was pointing towards. Under a white and sparkling tree, Lu Shu saw someone crawling on the ground, desperate to get closer to the tree trunk. But on the mirror, he drew further and further away from the tree. When that person saw Lu Shu and Chen Zuan approaching, he started to crawl even more wildly. The tree had 4 or 5 white, sparkling fruit. They seemed extraordinarily gorgeous. But Lu Shu and Chen Zuan did not know what function these fruits had. Lu Shu did not recognize the person either. He turned around to ask Chen Zuan. "Do you recognize him?" "No," Chen Zuan shook his head. When the person saw Lu Shu and Chen Zuan approaching him, he immediately roared, "Go away. I found this first." Lu Shu raised his eyebrows. "Does it mean that it belongs to you if you found it first, so you belong to me because I found you, right?" Chen Zuan gasped in shock. What was Lu Shu saying? From Chen Zuan's Distress, plus 66. From Nojoa Takahira's Distress, plus 666. When they were approaching the person, Lu Shu had received a wave of distress points. He could finally confirm that the distress points came from this person. When Lu Shu was at the Beimang remains, he had already settled his accounts with the spies. After that, he did not receive any distress points from Japanese names. But here was another one. His surname was Nojoa too. Daoyuan class students from all over the country had gathered in the Lop Nur remains. Lu Shu thought that he would encounter a spy, but he did not expect to bump into one so quickly. But Lu Shu could not get rid of him without rhyme or reason in front of Chen Zuan. He knew that the person was a spy, but to Chen Zuan, he was a fellow student. The collection of gods was rallying their forces after they had been defeated. Many spies cut their ties with the organization. Some spies did not know what to do, while others heaved a sigh of relief. The elimination of their organization meant that their original mission was over. There was a possibility that no one knew they were spies. They could use their current identity and continue with their lives. Not everyone was willing to sacrifice themselves for the collection of gods. Not all Japanese were unafraid of death. But did this mean that nothing would happen even if there were spies among them? Lu Shu did not agree. They could suddenly launch a bomb. Thus, if Lu Shu encountered them, he would kill all of them as far as possible. Lu Shu slid under the tree, as if nothing had happened. He stood up and calmly picked the fruits from the tree. He put the 4 fruits in his pocket. Takahira, who was underneath the tree, angrily shouted, "After I get out, I will definitely report this to the Heavenly Network. Don't think that you can take these fruits for yourself." Lu Shu thought about it and said, "Then I'll share some with you. Can you keep a secret?" Takahira's expression changed. He suddenly said, "Sure. As long as you are willing to share the fruit with me, I am willing to keep a secret." Lu Shu nodded his head. "Okay. Keep to your word." As he spoke, Lu Shu broke a branch from the tree and threw it in front of Takahira. "Here." Chen Xuan gasped in shock once again. "Did you think that he wanted a share of the tree branch? What were you thinking?" From Nojoa Takahira's distress, plus 999. Takahira was upset. "Are you playing with me?" Chen Xuan looked at the other branch in Lu Shu's hand and was silent. "Brother Shu, is that branch in your hand for me?" "Here." Lu Shu passed the branch to Chen Xuan. "Good boy. Have a souvenir." From Chen Xuan's distress, plus 666. There was a sudden turn of events. Suddenly, Lu Shu raised his hand and hit Chen Xuan at the back of his neck. Then, he turned around and spoke to Takahira in Japanese. "Since when were the Nojoas so impatient? I have seen your records in Tokyo." Nojoa Takahira. "The organization is calling for you. After you go out, contact me." Takahira was visibly shocked. He calmed himself down. "Yes, my lord." "Who is that?" Lu Shu patted Chen Xuan and spoke in Chinese. "Fatty, he wants to know who you are. Do a self-introduction." Chen Xuan laughed as he straightened up. "What was that glance just now? How was my acting? What were you guys saying in Japanese?" When Lu Shu had asked Chen Xuan whether he recognized this person, he had glanced at Chen Xuan. Although there was no meaning behind this glance, Chen Xuan knew that something unexpected would happen. Thus, when Lu Shu pretended to knock him out, he consciously played along with Lu Shu. If it were someone else, they may not have been on the same page as Lu Shu. But Chen Xuan was very sharp. Takahira could not understand what was going on. Lu Shu knew his real name. If it were not someone from the organization who had looked at his records, how could he have gotten his name right on the first try? Even if it were a bluff, how could it have been so accurate? "You have betrayed the organization," Takahira said coldly. Takahira thought that Lu Shu was a spy, just like him. Now that the collection of gods was gone, Lu Shu had chosen to join the Heavenly Network. To be honest, this conclusion did not make much sense. But Takahira could not think of any other possibilities. Chen Xuan was happy. He did not know that Lu Shu knew Nojoa Takahira's real name. On the other hand, he found the idea of a spy very interesting. "Brother Shu, he said that you're a spy?"
Ha! 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 Ha!
Lu Shu did not hesitate. With Chen Xuan around, he did not expose Takahira's identity. If Lu Shu had been alone, he would have killed Takahira long ago. Lu Shu hurled a lightning aura blade at Takahira's heart. Takahira tried to stop it, but he was standing on the mirror and could not move. He could not escape even if he wanted to. The lightning aura blade pierced through Takahira's palm he had stretched out to protect himself. In a flash, Takahira was paralyzed by the lightning. Chen Xuan finally knew what had happened to him previously. The lightning aura blade did not stop at Takahira's palm. It pierced through his carotid artery. Blood flowed on the mirror. From Nojoa Takahira's distress, plus 1000. Before Chen Xuan could understand what had happened, Lu Shu took the branch from Takahira's hand and passed it to Chen Xuan. "Here. He's dead. This is for you." From Chen Xuan's distress, plus 666. Chapter 604, Lu Xiaoshu, the most impressive person in the universe. Chen Zuan stood on the waterproof mat and silently looked at the two branches in his hands. He did not say anything. It was better to have these branches than have nothing at all. What if the branches became useful in the future? At that time, he would have the branches, but Lu Shu would not.
Ha! Ha!
This was interesting. Chen Zuan silently anticipated for that day. If they discovered that this tree branch had a mysterious function one day, would Lu Shu regret giving him these two branches? When Chen Zuan thought about this, he started to giggle. Suddenly, he was dumbfounded. He saw Lu Shu wave at the glittering and translucent tree root with nothing in his hands. Clang! There was nothing in Lu Shu's hands, but a deep and smooth cut appeared on the tree root. Brother Shu, what kind of crazy skill have you been practicing? Is the invisible sword so impressive? Chen Zuan muttered. Lu Shu did not pay any attention to him. He continued to slash at the tree root with the Cheng-Ying sword in his hands. The entire tree started to tilt to one side without much effort. Even the core of the tree is made up of this crystal-like substance. What plant is this? How weird, Lu Shu said in shock as he stored the entire tree into the Seal of Lands. Brother Shu, you are really impressive, Chen Zuan sighed. Everywhere you go, even the trees are not spared. From Chen Zuan's distress, plus 666. Earlier, Chen Zuan still thought that he had gotten lucky with the tree branches. But seeing the turn of events now, Lu Shu had taken away the entire tree. In Chen Zuan's eyes, Lu Shu's figure suddenly became gigantic. He could not catch up to Lu Shu in this lifetime. Brother Shu, I have decided on a nickname for you. The most impressive person in the universe, Chen Zuan sighed. Okay, stop your nonsense. Lu Shu sat on the waterproof. He had cut down the tree as there were very strong waves of energy coming from the tree. He decided to go back and slowly analyze the tree. If it was useless, then so be it. What if it was useful? Lu Shu's philosophy was that he would rather kill the wrong person than let the chance slip through his hands. After all, he did not have to put in too much effort. Lu Shu thought about it and used his Cheng-Ying sword to cut out a large portion of the mirror. He would bring this back to analyze as well. Chen Zuan was dumbfounded. He even took a portion of the ground. From Chen Zuan's distress, plus 999. Brother Shu, when will I be as outstanding as you? With tens of thousands of people in the same remains, there was a high chance of them bumping into Daoyuan class students. But these students were either struggling to keep their balance, or had given up and resorted to lying down on the ground while eating their rations. There were even students who were watching crosstalk videos on their phones. There were all kinds of people in the remains. There were even people who had brought 2 or 3 portable chargers. When Lu Shu and Chen Zuan passed by them, they each contributed distress points. Some started to become suspicious. Lu Shu and Chen Zuan were obviously Daoyuan class students. Why were they suffering, while Lu Shu and Chen Zuan seemed like they were having fun? The mirror was very slippery, thus every time Lu Shu used the long spear's move, they could advance 100 meters forwards. Chen Zuan, who was sitting behind, felt as if he was skiing. Even if they could not find the relic, he had a lot more fun compared to the other students. Lu Shu and Chen Zuan also saw very determined students. Even if she could not stand up, she continued trying again and again. Who is that? Lu Shu asked curiously, I feel like I've seen her before. She is a Class A aptitude genius, Chen Zuan said. I've seen her several times. This Class A aptitude genius was very determined. She walked carefully but with firm strides. Before every step, she had to ensure that her balance was perfect. This was to ensure that she did not slip while taking her next step. She had to control her muscles. Although it was very tiring, she did not give up. Mu Xiaobai looked forward with determination. As long as she was breathing, she would not give up. As a class aptitude genius, she could not be as weak as the ordinary Daoyuan class students. This was a quality they had formed after being pressured by Nie Ting. This way of thinking was also influenced by her pride. Lu Shu and Chen Zuan passed by in a breeze. Mu Xiaobai was dumbfounded. From Mu Xiaobai's distress, plus 666. Chen Zuan said softly, she is Mu Xiaobai, one of the Class A geniuses. It is said that she had completed her task well, but her abilities fall short of the likes of Chao Qingxi and Cheng Qiuqiao. It is said that during the black market task, someone had stolen her task. She had to find another task to make up for it. That's why she is slower than Chao Qingxi and the rest. She is a good lady. I don't know which idiot went to steal her task sksksk. A purple thunderbolt flashed past Chen Zuan's buttock. From Chen Zuan's distress, plus 666. Ahem. Lu Shu looked up. Zuan, you can live longer if you talk less. Okay. Chen Zuan felt like he had solved a puzzle that troubled many class aptitude geniuses. It was a pity that he could not tell anyone. If he did, there might be consequences. Lu Shu pondered for a moment before he spoke. The class aptitude geniuses will change a lot after this task. When we started on this task, they were still immature and naive. In the blink of an eye, they have become true warriors. Chen Zuan sighed. Yes, the more I work hard, the more I feel that talent is important. Take Mu Xiaobai as an example. Even though her task was stolen, she is about to reach the peak of Class C. Meanwhile, I have been hovering around Class C beginner. Sometimes, I really feel down about it. Lu Shu comforted him. No need for self-pity. You have many more days to feel down. Brother Shu, you really have a unique way of comforting people, said Chen Zuan expressionlessly. From Chen Zuan's distress, plus 199. Brother Shu, why haven't you eaten the white fruit? It looks like a mango and probably tastes good. Although I don't know what function it has. Chen Zuan suddenly changed the subject. But if it's a poison, then it's bad news. I've heard that people are often poisoned in the remains. Do you want me to test it out? People being poisoned? That was absolute nonsense. Till now, Lu Shu had never heard of poisonous fruits in the remains. They were definitely dangerous though. If these fruits allowed people to awaken certain abilities and a Class B ate it, the Class B might be intertwined with the element. This was the reason why Lu Shu did not intend to try one of the fruits. Chapter 605, Chen Zuan, Not Afraid of Death. To be honest, if Chen Zuan was willing to quote a price, Lu Shu would not mind selling a fruit to him. After all, many people have said that those with training and who have undergone awakenings may become even more impressive in the future. To Lu Shu and Chen Zuan, this was a win-win situation. Why not do it? But now, Chen Zuan had nothing. Brother Shu, do you really not want someone to try the fruit for you? Chen Zuan smiled obsequiously. Lu Shu shook his head. You are now standing opposite of me. Chen Zuan was dumbfounded. Opposite? That can't be possible, Brother Shu. I have always treasured you and supported you as my leader. No, the one standing opposite of me is poor, said Lu Shu calmly. From Chen Zuan's distress, plus 666. Brother Shu, you're too much, Chen Zuan was slightly annoyed. Lu Shu suddenly looked up at the sky. He hesitated for a moment and asked, is it just me or has the sky darkened a little? Chen Zuan looked up in surprise. Maybe it's just you. I don't see anything different. Lu Shu furrowed his eyebrows. According to Jiang Feng, there was no day or night here. If that was the case, then there should be no change to the color of the sky. Maybe it was just him? Lu Shu used his phone to take a picture of the sky and continued forwards. After 6 hours, he took another picture. Putting the two pictures side by side, even Chen Zuan could see the difference. The sky really is different. It's getting darker. When there was a slow change in the color of the sky, people would not be able to see the difference. It was like boiling a frog slowly. When it can no longer bear the heat, it can no longer jump out either. Following the same logic, when people touch hot water in winter, they will feel that the water is scalding because their hands were cold. It was all relative. So it's not that this place doesn't have night and day. It's just that day and night are too long, said Lu Shu calmly. We must be careful with the rules in the remains. When day changes to night, the rules of the remains will change. Everyone will be exposed to danger. Danger? What danger? Chen Zuan was uneasy. Lu Shu suddenly looked down at the mirror below them. It may come from right beneath our feet. Isn't this the ground? Will something pop up from underground? Chen Zuan was very puzzled. We don't know how long day lasts. In the past, people in the remains still had time to take a break. After all, night only lasted for a few hours. Once the sky brightened, everything would go back to normal. Lu Shu calmly analyzed, but it's different here. If we are really in danger, we will spend a few days, even more than 10 days, battling the danger without rest. There was a limit to a person's strength. Even a practitioner could not go for more than 10 days without sleeping at all. Who knows what mischief this place had in store? Then what do we do? Chen Zuan asked. They could not even calculate the number of hours left till night. We continue moving forward, Lu Shu said calmly. Before night falls, we have to find a place where we can rest and set up our line of defense. I feel that we are already in the face of danger. Normally, Chen Zuan would not rely on people. But when it came to crucial times, he knew very clearly what he should and should not do. He was truly smart. What he acknowledged now was that if he wanted to continue living, he had to follow Lu Shu. They continued moving forward. Lu Shu looked at the time and realized that 12 hours had passed. He suddenly realized that the mirror underneath them was not as slippery as when they had first entered. It had become tough for no apparent reason. Lu Shu stopped and kept the waterproof mat in the seal of lands. We can walk from now on. The mirror was slightly blurry. As time passed, the mirror became like that of polished marble. While it was still very slippery, at least they could walk on the surface. Chen Zuan stepped on the ground. I feel that this will benefit us. At least it is not as slippery. Our combat power will increase. If that's the case, then that's great. I'm worried that the ground will continue to change. Lu Shu looked at the ground. But one advantage was that they could hurry up and find a place to settle down. Suddenly, there was a rumble of thunder from the sky. Chen Zuan and Lu Shu looked up at the sky. Suddenly, someone wearing Taoist robes flew towards them from the sky. Lu Shu suddenly sighed. Encountering your second master in this kind of crazy place, does he want to die, your second master? No, Brother Shu. Wait, Chen Zuan interrupted. Why do I feel like you're scolding him? No, you think too much. Lu Shu laughed buoyantly. The person was Chen Bailey. When Chen Bailey saw the two of them, he picked up his pace. He lightly landed in front of them. After not seeing him for a long time, Lu Shu realized that Chen Bailey, like Li Xianyi, looked younger. Although he was old, the number of wrinkles on his face had decreased significantly. Chen Bailey looked at Lu Shu and smiled. Long time no see. Back then when Chen Bailey was undergoing his basic training, he would bow to Lu Shu. This showed that he lacked the human feelings that Lu Shu possessed. Chen Bailey was very irritable, but there was no doubt about his character. Thus, Chun Bailey had always seen Lu Shu as 1/3 his junior, 1/3 his friend, and 1/3 his benefactor. Human emotions were very complex. One could not use examples to generalize them. Lu Shu smiled too. Your complexion is getting better and better. Chen Bailey turned and said to Chen Xuan, you have allowed yourself to be helped by others, right? When Chen Xuan heard this, his jaw dropped, but he did not say anything. Chen Bailey had hit the nail on the head. Without Lu Shu, he would probably still be lying down on the ground. When Chen Bailey saw this, he started to laugh coldly. You only care about playing all day, but not about making progress. Have you ever reflected on why Lu Shu is so outstanding, yet you are far behind the others? I have reflected. Chen Xuan defended himself. Oh. Chen Bailey raised his eyebrows. Then tell me why. Chen Xuan said carefully, it's because my genes are not good. As Chen Xuan's second master, Chen Bailey used his horsetail whisk to hit Chen Xuan. Sigh. I'll deal with you when we get back. Lu Shu was filled with deep veneration towards Chen Xuan. At first, he thought that this fatty was sly and dared to ridicule him. But now, he knew that Chen Xuan was not afraid of death. Not only did he ridicule Lu Shu, he even provoked an attack from Chen Bailey.
What does it mean to be happy? 'Cause it looks like we all don't know. Glass half full or empty, man, we just putting on a show. Try to look to the heavens.